She accidentally texted the Billionaire CEO, "He's hitting my mom." He rushed there immediately. The phone buzzed at 8:17 p.m. Not the office line, the personal one, the one only 12 people in the world had the number to. Damian Cole almost did not look. Almost. The message was 4 lines. No punctuation, no capital letters. The kind of typing that happens when hands are too small and too scared to care about any of that. "He's hitting my mom again. Please come, please hurry, I am scared." Read that again. "He's hitting my mom again. Please come, please hurry. I am scared." Now imagine you are standing 40 stories above a city that has given you everything. Imagine 12 executives are waiting for you to sign a $340 million deal that took 11 months to build. Imagine the world you have constructed around yourself is airtight and controlled, and exactly the way you designed it. Then imagine a child's voice breaks through all of it in 4 lines. That is where this story begins. Not in a boardroom, not in a penthouse, not in any of the places wealth likes to tell its story. It begins with a little girl hiding in the dark, reaching for the only thing she had left. Her mother's old tablet, a cracked screen, a wrong number, and a man on the other end who chose to answer. If you have ever wondered whether strangers still show up for each other in this world, stay with this story. Because what happened next will remind you that miracles do not always arrive in the form you expect. Sometimes they come in dark coats and rain-soaked shoes, running up a stairwell in a building they have never visited, for a family they have never met. Stay with me. This is the story of Damian, Nadia, and Amara, and it starts tonight. The rain had been falling since 6 o'clock, the kind of rain that makes the city look like it is crying. Damian Cole stood at the floor-to-ceiling window of his 34th floor office and watched the lights below blur and streak in the wet dark. Behind him, 12 executives in tailored suits sat around a mahogany table that cost more than most people's cars. On the screen at the head of the room, the final numbers of a $340 million waterfront acquisition glowed in clean white type. 11 months of work, 67 meetings, 4 near collapses, and 1 hostile counterbid from a competitor who eventually ran out of nerve. Tonight was the close. Richard Osai, his CFO, was talking. Something about transfer fees and title structures. His voice was precise and measured, the voice of a man who believed that precision was the highest form of respect. Damian was not listening. He was watching the rain. His phone sat face up on the desk behind him. He had a rule about phones on deal nights: nothing interrupts the close. It was a rule he had kept for 9 years without exception. The phone buzzed. He turned his head, just barely, the way you turn toward a sound you are not sure you heard. Then he walked to the desk and looked at the screen. 1 message, unknown number, 4 lines of broken text that rearranged every priority he had ever set for himself in the space of 3 seconds. "He's hitting my mom again. Please come, please hurry. I am scared." Richard was still talking. Damian picked up the phone. His fingers moved before his mind had finished processing what his eyes were reading. He typed quickly, his thumb pressing each letter with a steadiness his chest did not feel. "This is not who you meant to text, but I am reading this. Are you somewhere safe right now? Tell me where you are." He stood very still, watching the screen. 3 seconds, 5, 7. Then the dots appeared, small and frantic. Then the reply. "Under the bed. His in the kitchen. Please don't tell him," I texted. Richard stopped talking. Someone at the table cleared their throat. Damian heard none of it. He was already typing. "What is your name? What is your address? I am calling the police right now, and I am coming to you myself. Do not move. Do not make a sound." He was already walking toward the door. Richard's voice found him before he reached it. "Damian, we are 40 minutes from signing. The table is waiting. Where are you going?" Damian did not turn around. He was already in the hallway, already pressing the phone to his ear, already running through the math in his head. Distance, time, traffic, rain. The reply came in pieces, the way messages come from someone whose hands will not stay still. "Amara, I am Amara, 14 Caldwell Street, apartment 2. C, please be quiet when you call them. He gets worse when he hears sirens, please. He hit the stairwell at a run. 911. What is your emergency? I need police and paramedics dispatched to 14 Caldwell Street, apartment 2. C, domestic violence in progress. A woman is being assaulted. There is a child in the apartment. Her name is Amara. She is 9 years old and she is hiding. The man's name is Raymond. I do not have a last name. Sir, how do you know this? She texted me by accident. She thought I was someone else. I have been in contact with her for the last 4 minutes. She can hear her mother being hurt right now. Please send everyone you have and please be fast. Units are being dispatched. Sir, please stay on the line. I cannot stay on the line. I need to keep contact with the child. He ended the call and pushed through the lobby doors into the rain. His driver saw him coming and had the engine running before Damien reached the car. Caldwell Street, as fast as you can. The car pulled out of the underground garage and merged into the wet night. Damien sat in the back seat and typed with both thumbs, rain hammering the windows. Amara, police are on their way. I am also coming. You did the right thing reaching out. Are you still under the bed? The reply came fast. Yes. He's still in the kitchen. I can hear him. Mama, stop talking. His jaw tightened. He leaned forward. Faster, please. Amara, I need you to stay exactly where you are. Do not come out for any reason until you hear the police say the word police out loud, or until your mama calls your name herself. Do you understand? Yes. You are being so brave. I want you to know that. Can you tell me, are you hurt? No, just scared. I know you are scared. But help is very close now. Can you keep talking to me while we wait? A pause. Then, okay. He exhaled once, slow and controlled. What is your mama's name, Amara? Nadia. Her name is Nadia. And she is still in the apartment with you. Yes, Hayes in the kitchen with her now. I can hear him yelling. She keeps saying, please, Raymond, please. Damien looked out the window at the rain-blurred city. His driver was moving fast, threading through gaps in traffic with quiet efficiency. The night looked different from the back of this car than it had from the 44th floor. Closer, more real, more urgent. He typed, I am 7 minutes away. The police are closer. You are almost through this, I promise. He had not made a promise he did not keep in 15 years of business. He did not intend to start tonight. Now let me take you back to where this story really begins. Not at 8:17 p.m., not in the boardroom. Let me take you back 90 minutes earlier to apartment 2C on Caldwell Street, where a 9-year-old girl was setting the dinner table and listening to the sky outside and already, in the quiet animal way of children who have learned to read the weather of a house, already knowing that tonight was going to be one of the bad ones. The apartment on Caldwell Street was the kind of place that fought hard to be cheerful. There was a bright yellow rug in the living room that Nadia Osei had found at a market 3 Saturdays ago and carried home on the bus by herself. There was a framed print above the sofa, a reproduction of a painting of a woman reading by a window that Nadia had always loved because the woman in it looked so completely at peace. There was a small vase on the kitchen counter, grocery store flowers, carnations, and baby's breath, because Nadia believed that flowers in a home were not a luxury but a necessity. There was Amara's artwork on the refrigerator, held up by magnets shaped like small fruits, a drawing of the two of them at the park, a drawing of their cat who had been gone for 2 years but whom Amara still drew from memory because she said she did not want him to feel forgotten. The apartment was trying. That was the word for it. Trying. Nadia had moved them here 14 months ago, after the situation with their previous landlord became untenable and her savings were thinner than she wanted to admit to anyone, including herself. She was 32 years old. She had a degree in graphic design from a good university and a freelance career that had been strong once and was now inconsistent in the way that freelance careers become inconsistent when your life develops too many unpredictable variables. She was smart. She was resourceful. She was the kind of woman who made $3 stretch to $5 and made a difficult situation look manageable because she had a daughter watching her and she refused to let her daughter grow up, thinking that difficulty was a reason to fall apart. She had met Raymond 11 months ago. He had come into her life the way certain storms come, with warmth first, all charm and forward movement, and the specific attentiveness of a man who has learned exactly what a tired, capable, lonely woman needs to hear. He was good with Amara from the start. He remembered her favorite television programs and her teachers, names and the way she liked her eggs scrambled with the cheese mixed in, not sprinkled on top. He told Nadia she was extraordinary. He said it as a statement of fact, the way you say the sky is blue, without decoration or agenda. She believed him, because she wanted to believe him, because believing him cost nothing at the time. The first time Raymond raised his voice at her, she told herself it was the stress of his job. The first time his hand connected with her face, he cried for 2 hours and brought roses the next morning, yellow ones. Because she had mentioned once that yellow roses were her favorite, and he said it would never happen again. And she believed him because she needed to believe him, because the alternative was a truth she was not ready to hold. It happened again. Nadia adjusted. She learned the patterns. She learned which topics to avoid, and which moods to manage, and how to make herself smaller and quieter in the particular ways that meant the evening would pass without incident. She told herself this was temporary. She told herself she was protecting Amara from disruption and from the instability of another upheaval. She told herself many things in the dark of sleepless nights, and some of them were true, and some of them were the stories we tell ourselves when the truth is too heavy to carry directly. Amara had never been fooled. She was 9 years old, but she was also something older in the way that certain children are older, children who have been paying close attention to the adult world from an early age because the adult world gave them no choice. She watched Raymond the way a naturalist watches an unfamiliar animal. She noted his arrival times. She noted the particular set of his shoulders when he came through the door, and whether his footsteps were heavy or light on the hallway floor. She noted the change in her mother's voice when he entered a room, the way it became slightly higher and slightly more careful, the way a musician slightly raises the volume of the accompaniment when the soloist is struggling. Tonight, Raymond came home at 6:40. Amara heard his key in the lock and felt a shift in the apartment's atmosphere the way you feel a change in air pressure before rain. She set the last fork on the table and did not look up. Raymond came in without speaking. He dropped his jacket over the back of the sofa rather than hanging it. He went to the refrigerator and stood in front of it for a long time without taking anything out. Nadia came out of the bedroom with a dish towel over her shoulder and a careful smile on her face. "Hey, you are back a little early. Dinner is almost ready." Raymond did not answer. He closed the refrigerator door slowly. Nadia continued moving toward the kitchen. Her movements were deliberate and unhurried, the practiced performance of someone who has learned that stillness can provoke as easily as motion. She said something about the food, something light and conversational, something designed to fill the silence with something neutral. Raymond said, "You move my things." Nadia paused, just barely, just for a breath. "I just tidied the counter. Everything is where it was." I said, "You move my things." The quality of his voice had changed. It was lower now, and flat. The particular flatness that Amara had learned to recognize as the sound that came just before the other sounds. "Amara," her mother said, without turning around, "go to your room, baby, do your reading." Amara went. She closed her bedroom door and sat on the floor with her back against it, because the floor was cooler than the bed, and the door was thinner than the wall, and she could hear better here. She heard her mother's voice, steady and careful, trying to manage the weather. She heard Raymond's voice, rising. She heard the particular percussion of escalation, the rhythm she had memorized against her will, the raised volume, the accusation, the denial, the louder accusation. Then something broke, something ceramic, from the sound of it. Her mother did not make a sound when it happened. The silence after the breaking was worse than the noise. Amara reached for her mother's old tablet, the one with the cracked corner that lived on her bedside table. Her mother had given it to her for reading and for the occasional video. The screen had a hairline crack along the bottom right that they could not afford to fix, but that did not affect the display. She knew her Uncle Kwame's number by heart. She had recited it with her mother 100 times. "If anything ever happens, if Mama ever needs help, if you are ever scared and cannot reach me, you call Uncle Kwame." She opened the messages. She scrolled to what she believed was her uncle's contact. Her hands were shaking, and the screen was bright in the dark of her room, and the sounds from the kitchen were getting louder, and she did not double-check the number because she did not have time to double-check anything. She typed, "He's hitting my mom again. Please come. Please hurry. I am scared." She pressed send. She held the tablet against her chest and closed her eyes and listened to the sounds through the wall and waited. The tablet buzzed. She looked at the screen. "This is not who you meant to text, but I am reading this. Are you somewhere safe right now? Tell me where you are." She stared at those words for 3 full seconds. Wrong number. She had sent her mother's emergency to a complete stranger. Fresh tears came. She had ruined everything. She had wasted the one thing she had, the one action available to her, and she had sent it to the wrong person, and now no one was coming, and the sounds from the kitchen were still happening, and she was 9 years old and alone in the dark. Then she read the message again. "This is not who you meant to text, but I am reading this." Not dismissing her, not ignoring it, not sending back a laughing face or a question mark or nothing at all. "Are you somewhere safe right now?" She typed back. Her thumbs were still shaking. "Under the bed. Hess in the kitchen. Please don't tell him I texted." The response came in seconds. "What is your name? What is your address?" "I am calling the police right now, and I am coming to you myself. Do not move. Do not make a sound." Something in those words reached through her panic and found the part of her that was still capable of believing things. Not because they were eloquent, because they were immediate. Because they did not hesitate. Because whoever this person was, they were already moving. And she could feel it through the screen, and she needed to feel that something was moving toward her. She typed her name, she typed her address. She typed the thing about the sirens because she had seen what happened when Raymond heard sirens, and she could not let that happen. Then she slid off the bed and pressed herself down onto the floor with her cheek against the cold wood and the tablet clutched to her chest, and she waited, watching the thin line of light under her door. She texted the wrong number, but the right person answered. Now, if you are just joining the story, you believe that there are still people in this world who will drop everything for a stranger, hit that subscribe button right now, because this is only the beginning. And where this story goes from here is going to change the way you see the world. Stay with me. Back in the car, Damien was watching the streets change around him. He knew this city the way a developer knows a city, which is to say, he knew it in sections and valuations and zoning designations. He knew which neighborhoods were transitioning and which ones were stuck and which ones were fighting. He knew Caldwell Street by name, but he had never had a reason to go there. He had a reason now. "Amara," he typed. "Police are 4 minutes away. I am 5 minutes away. You are almost through this. Talk to me. What can you hear right now?" The reply was slow in coming, which made his chest tighten until it arrived. She stopped crying. I don't know if that's good. It was not good. He knew that. He did not type it. Sometimes when people stop crying, it means they are exhausted and catching their breath. Stay hidden. Do not come out for any reason. He looked up at his driver. "Tell me you see Caldwell." "1 minute, sir." He looked back at the screen. "Amara, I need you to know something. What you did tonight, reaching out, asking for help, that took real courage. Real courage. Most adults would not have done what you did. Do you understand me?" A long pause. Then, "I was just scared." That is exactly what courage is. Being scared and doing it anyway. The car slowed. Through the rain-slicked window, Damien saw the building. 3 stories of faded brick, a broken light in the parking lot, a busted railing on the front steps, a building that had been trying for a long time and was very tired of trying. He was out of the car before it fully stopped. He could hear it from the parking lot. A man's voice, thick and ugly, coming from a second-floor window. Something that might have been his name or might have been an accusation. The kind of voice that does not care about volume, because it has stopped caring about being heard by the right people and only cares about the sound of its own power. Damien took the front steps 2 at a time. The police arrived as he hit the second-floor landing. 2 officers, moving fast and quiet in the particular way of people who have done this before and know that noise at the wrong moment costs everyone something they cannot get back. He stepped aside. He identified himself as the caller. He pointed at the door. The officer at the front pounded with the flat of her fist. "Police, open the door." Silence. 3 seconds of it, the kind of silence that precedes a reckoning. Then the door opened. What followed was fast, practiced. The officers moved inside and the sounds changed quality, becoming authoritative and directed, the sounds of order being restored. Damien stood in the hallway and did not move. He understood his place in this particular sequence of events, and his place was here, not inside, not in the way, not performing a heroism that belonged to someone else. He heard it when it was over. Not the officers' voices. Not Raymond's voice, which was loud and then not loud and then absent entirely. He heard a small pair of feet on hardwood, then a child's voice. "Mama!" He stepped into the doorway. The apartment was what it was. The bright yellow rug. The framed print on the wall, slightly crooked now. The grocery store carnations knocked sideways on the counter, water spreading slowly toward the edge. A kitchen chair on its side. The particular aftermath of a room that has been used as a stage for someone's rage. Nadia Osei was sitting on the edge of the sofa. One officer crouched before her, speaking in a low and careful voice. Her left wrist was held at an angle that said it hurt to hold it any other way. There was a cut above her lip. There was the beginning of a bruise beneath her left eye. Amara had her arms around her mother's neck and her face pressed into her mother's shoulder, and she was crying with the specific relief of a child who has been holding everything together alone for longer than a child should ever have to. Nadia held her daughter with her good arm and closed her eyes. Damien looked away. Some moments are not for witnesses. Some moments belong entirely to the people living them. He stood near the door and he was quiet, and he let the reunion breathe. After a while, the female officer approached him. "You are the one who called it in." "Yes." She studied his face the way officers do, reading for the angle, for the complication, for the thing that does not add up. He returned her gaze steadily. "The child texted you." "Wrong number. She meant to reach her uncle." The officer looked at the phone in his hand, then back at him. "And you came." "I came." She held his gaze for one more moment. Then she nodded once and went back to her work. From across the room, a small voice found him. "You are the man I texted." Damien turned. Amara was looking at him from her mother's side. She had her mother's cheekbones, and a gap between her front teeth and her eyes were red from crying, but they were steady. She was assessing him with the thoroughness of someone who has learned that people are not always what they first appear to be. "That is me," he said. He kept his voice easy, unhurried, the way you speak to a child who has earned the right to take as much time as she needs. "I thought you were my Uncle Kwame." "I know. You were close." He almost smiled. "How are you feeling?" Amara considered this question seriously. She took it the way children take questions when they had decided to tell the truth. "Scared still, but less scared than before." "That sounds about right." She looked at the door through which the officers had taken Raymond, then back at him. "Is he coming back tonight?" "No, he is not coming back tonight." "What about tomorrow?" The officer nearby looked up briefly and then looked back down. Damien crouched to Amara's eye level. "There are people whose entire job is making sure he cannot come back. They are very good at their job, and I am going to make sure they do it properly." "Okay." Amara searched his face. She had the gaze of someone who had been lied to by adults before and had developed good instruments for detecting it. Whatever she found in his face, it satisfied her. "Okay," she said. He stood. The paramedics had arrived and were moving toward Nadia. Damien stepped back to give them room and found himself near the window, looking out at the rain and the parking lot, and his car still running with the driver standing beside it, waiting. He did not feel like the same person who had been standing at a floor-to-ceiling window 40 stories up reviewing acquisition numbers an hour ago. He was not sure he could explain how that was possible. He was not sure he needed to explain it. He just knew he was not leaving. The paramedics confirmed what was already apparent. Nadia's left wrist had a possible fracture, Her ribs needed to be examined. The concussion was mild but present. They wanted to take her in. Nadia's first response was not about herself. She looked at Amara. "I cannot leave her here." "We will take her with us," the paramedic said. "She can wait in the family area." Nadia looked at her daughter. Amara was back to watching everything with those steady, careful eyes. "I am okay, Mama. You need to go." Nadia exhaled. It was a long exhale, the kind that carries a great deal more than air. Damien stepped forward. "I will follow. I will make sure you both have what you need when you get there." Nadia looked at him. She had not had a proper look at him until this moment. She had been too occupied with survival to look at anything that was not immediately essential. Now she looked. She was quiet for a moment. "Then, why?" He gave her the honest answer. "Because your daughter asked for help, and because I was in a position to give it." Nadia held his gaze. She was reading him the same way Amara had read him, with the same instruments, the same careful search for the thing that did not add up. "You are Damien Cole," she said. "I recognized the name when the officer said it. My brother talks about your buildings. That is me. A man like you, at my door, tonight." He nodded. "Yes." She looked away, looked at her daughter, looked at the knocked-over flowers on the counter, and the crooked print on the wall, and the room that had been trying so hard for so long. She did not say anything else, but she did not tell him to go. That was enough. At the hospital, they gave Nadia a room in the examination wing and a doctor with gentle hands and an efficient manner who confirmed the fracture in her wrist. The cracked ribs she had not known were cracked because the pain of them had been absorbed into the background noise of a body under sustained stress and the mild concussion from the night's final impact. Amara sat in the plastic chair in the corner and watched everything. She was still holding the tablet. Damien appeared in the doorway with 2 cups of hot chocolate from the vending machine down the hall. He held them in a way that suggested this was not something he did often, and he was not entirely sure he was doing it correctly. "I did not know what else to bring," he said. Amara looked at the cups, then at him, then at the cups again. She got up from the chair and took one of them. "Thank you," she said. She held it with both hands and sipped it and made a face that said it was not very good, but that it was also warm and she was cold, and that would do. Nadia watched this from the examination table, the interaction between her daughter and this stranger, the ease of it, the absence of performance or agenda on either side. She was not a woman who trusted easily. She had learned not to be, the way certain experiences teach certain lessons, thoroughly and without mercy. But she was watching her daughter accept a cup of hot chocolate from a man who had come running into the rain for them, and something in the watching made the walls inside her shift slightly. Not fall, just shift. Damien set the second cup on the small table beside her and stepped back. "Is there someone I can call for you?" he said. "Family, a friend." "My brother, his name is Kwame." He took out his phone. "Tell me the number." She told him. He dialed and spoke briefly, and then handed her the phone and stepped away to give her privacy. She heard Kwame's voice on the other end, and she closed her eyes and held the phone to her ear and did not say anything for a full 5 seconds. Then she said, "I need you to come." And Kwame said, "I am already in the car." After she handed the phone back, Damien sat in the visitor's chair, not the doctor's chair, the other one, the one reserved for people who were choosing to stay. He sat down and he did not make it a declaration. He just sat. Amara was looking at him again. "Why did you come?" she said. "You did not know us. You could have just called the police and gone back to your meeting." It was a child's question, but it was not a small question. It was the kind of question that deserves a real answer. Damien thought about what to say, not to perform, not to present himself in a particular light. He thought about what was actually true. "When I was young," he said, "a little older than you are now, my family went through something that was not exactly the same as what happened to you tonight, but was close enough that I understand what it feels like to be the person listening from the other room." He paused. "Someone helped us when it mattered, a woman named Celestine. She had no reason to. She was not family. She was not obligated. She just saw what was happening, and she decided that being able to help was reason enough." Amara was listening with her whole body. I have been carrying that ever since, he said, looking for the moment when I could do what she did. When your text came through tonight, I understood immediately that this was it. Amara was quiet for a moment. Did Celestine know she helped you, she said. Like, did she know how much? He looked at the floor, then back at her. She passed away before I could tell her. Amara thought about this with the seriousness she brought to everything. Then she said, I think she knew. I think when you do something good like that, you can feel it. Damien did not say anything to that. He did not need to. Outside the window, the rain was beginning to ease. The city was settling into the particular quiet that comes at this hour, the hour when everything that was going to happen tonight has happened, and the city begins the long, slow process of resetting for tomorrow. In a room in the examination wing, a woman with a fractured wrist and cracked ribs and a mild concussion was beginning, very slowly, to breathe differently. Not the careful managed breathing of someone managing a volatile situation. Actual breathing. The kind that means the body believes, at least for this moment, that it is safe. In the plastic chair in the corner, a 9-year-old girl with a gap between her front teeth had her knees pulled up and her cup of vending machine hot chocolate still warm in her hands, and her eyes finally, beginning to lose that sharpened animal watchfulness. And in the visitor's chair, a man in a rain-soaked dark coat who had walked away from a $340 million deal tonight to answer a wrong number text was sitting quietly in the particular posture of someone who is exactly where they are supposed to be. Kwame arrived 40 minutes later, still in his work clothes, moving fast down the hospital corridor. He went straight to his sister. She let him hold her for a moment, just a moment, before she straightened and said she was fine in the voice. That meant she was not fine, but she was going to be. Kwame looked at Damien over her shoulder. He looked at him for a long time. Then he extended his hand. Thank you. Damien took it. You do not need to thank me. I do. Kwame's voice was steady and deliberate. She would not have called me. She never calls me. He looked at his sister, and there was a complicated grief in it, the grief of a person who has watched someone they love make choices they could not stop, and has lived in the helplessness of that. She always handles it alone. If Amara had not reached out tonight... He stopped. Nadia looked at the ceiling. Amara looked at her uncle, and then at Damien, and then went back to her hot chocolate. Tonight she did not handle it alone, Damien said. Kwame nodded. He released Damien's hand. Then he asked the question that needed to be asked. Where do they go from here? Damien reached into the inside pocket of his coat and produced a business card. He set it on the table beside Nadia's bed with no ceremony at all. My personal number is on the back, he said. I know an attorney, one of the best domestic violence lawyers in this city. Her name is Patricia Dunmore. She does significant pro bono work. I already spoke with her before I came in here to ask if she had capacity. With your permission, I would like to make the introduction. Nadia looked at the card. She looked at it for a long time. Then she said, You already called her. I did not give her your name. I just asked if she had capacity. I did not want to assume. Nadia looked up at him. Something in her expression had changed. It was not gratitude, exactly. It was something more complicated than gratitude. It was the look of someone who has been operating for a very long time, in a world where people's help comes with conditions attached, encountering for the first time in a long time a version of help that appears not to. She looked at Kwame, then back at Damien. Why does a man like you know a domestic violence attorney on personal call terms, she said. Because my mother needed one 20 years ago, he said, and she could not afford one. And the difference it would have made to get to someone like Patricia early, the difference that might have made. He stopped. This is my way of making that difference for someone else, he said. Nadia did not respond immediately. Then she said, I will speak with her. Good, he said. I will make the introduction in the morning. He stood. He picked up his coat. Amara, he said. You were exceptional tonight. I want you to know that. Amara looked up from her cup. She studied him one final time with those instruments of hers. Will you come back, she said, or is this the part where you go? He looked at her with complete directness. I will come back, he said. He left before either of them could say anything else. In the hallway outside, he stood for a moment with his back against the wall and his eyes closed, and he was quiet in the way that people are quiet when they are recalibrating everything. His phone had 17 missed calls, 3 from Richard, 2 from his lawyer, the rest from numbers associated with the acquisition. He looked at them all. Then he put the phone in his pocket and walked toward the exit. The deal could wait. Everything else could wait. And that thought, for a man who had spent 15 years believing that nothing was more important than the clothes, was the most surprising thing that had happened to him all night. 3 days passed. Nadia did not call the number on the back of the card. She told herself it was because she was busy. There was Kwame's guest room to settle into, Amara's school to notify, the police report to read through twice, because the first time she read it, she could not fully absorb what it said about her own life. There was the business of being a woman who had just left a situation that she had spent 11 months pretending was not as serious as it was, which is a particular kind of busy that does not look like much from the outside but requires everything from the inside. She told herself she was not calling because she needed time. What she was actually doing was testing whether the card meant what it said, whether the man who had come running in the rain was the kind of person who waited, or the kind of person who disappeared once the emergency was over, and left nothing behind but a card and a feeling of obligation. On the morning of the 4th day, Amara came into the kitchen where Nadia was sitting with a cup of tea she had not drunk and said, without preamble, "You should call him." Nadia looked at her daughter. Amara was eating toast and looking at her with the steady, unreachable calm that had always been her most unsettling quality. "You do not know what you are talking about," Nadia said. "You have been looking at that card every day," Amara said. "I have seen you." Nadia looked at the card on the kitchen table. "He said he knew a lawyer," Amara said. "You have a hearing in 8 days." She took a bite of toast. "That seems important." Nadia picked up the card. She called the number. He answered on the second ring, not with hello, with her name. "Nadia." His voice was even and unhurried, as if he had not been waiting, and also as if he had been ready. "How are you both?" "Better," she said. "We are at my brother's. It is okay here." "Good. That is good." A pause. She had not planned what she wanted to say next, and so the silence sat between them for a moment, not uncomfortable, just present. "You said you knew an attorney," she said finally. "I did. I will make the introduction today if you are ready." She looked at Amara's back. Her daughter was rinsing her plate at the sink with the focused efficiency of a child who is pretending not to listen. "I am ready," Nadia said. "Good. Her name is Patricia Dunmore. She is going to call you within the hour. She already has the basic outline. I did not give her details, just enough for her to understand the nature of the situation." Nadia was quiet for a moment. "You already briefed her," she said. "Just the outline." "You did that before I even called." Another pause. "Then, I was not going to pressure you, but I wanted to be ready when you were." She did not know how to respond to that. She was not accustomed to people preparing on her behalf, without being asked, without attaching anything to the preparation. "Thank you," she said. It came out quieter than she intended. "Patricia will take good care of you," he said, "and Nadia. Whatever you need from here, you call me, day or night." I meant that. She believed him. She was surprised that she believed him. But she did. Patricia Dunmore called 40 minutes later. She had the voice of a woman who had walked into difficult rooms for 20 years and had never once considered not walking in. She was precise, and she was warm, and she asked the right questions in the right order, and when Nadia answered, she listened without interrupting, which was a thing that Nadia had not experienced enough of in recent years, and which undid something in her chest. They met 2 days later in Patricia's office, a clean spare space with good light and a desk covered in organized files. Amara stayed with Kwame. Nadia sat across from Patricia and for the first time told the complete version of the story, not the managed version, not the version that minimized and explained and contextualized, but all of it, from the beginning, in the right order. Patricia listened to all of it. Then she said, "I am going to need you to tell me that again from the start, and this time I am going to write everything down." The hearing was 8 days away. Patricia spent those 8 days building a case the way a surgeon prepares for an operation, methodically, without wasted motion. She gathered the police report and the hospital records, and she located the 2 prior cases Raymond had been involved in, cases from before Nadia. Cases that had been dropped when the women involved found themselves unable to continue, and she built those into the framework as a pattern of behavior rather than an isolated incident. She filed for a permanent restraining order. She filed it on a Tuesday, and by Thursday it was granted. On the morning of the hearing, Nadia stood in the courthouse bathroom and looked at herself in the mirror for a long time. She looked at the fading bruise beneath her left eye, the cast on her wrist. The woman in the mirror who looked, for the first time in almost a year, like someone who was not managing a performance. Kwame knocked on the door. "Are you ready?" She looked at herself one more time. "Yes," she said. In the courtroom, Raymond sat on the other side of a room that had been designed specifically for this purpose, to make certain kinds of reckoning unavoidable. He looked smaller here than he had in the apartment on Caldwell Street. He looked the way people look when the context that gave them power is removed and they are left with only themselves. Nadia did not look at him for longer than it took to confirm he was there. Then she looked forward. Patricia stood and spoke. She spoke with the precision and force of someone who had been preparing for this not just for 8 days, but for every difficult year that had led her to this particular work. She laid out the pattern. She named the dates. She read from the hospital records in a voice that was clear and steady, and that did not perform emotion because the facts themselves were sufficient. Raymond's lawyer offered the deal at 11:43. 2 years, mandatory counseling, permanent restraining order. Raymond looked at Nadia once before he signed. She met his gaze and held it and did not look away first. He signed. Outside the courthouse, the October sun was doing something generous with the light. Nadia stood on the top step and breathed, just breathed. The clean, unmanaged breathing of a body that has remembered it does not need to brace. Kwame stood beside her. Amara held her good hand. And slightly to the side, in the particular position of someone who understands the geometry of a moment and where he belongs in it, Damien Cole stood in the sun and said nothing at all. Nadia looked at him. He looked back. "It is done," she said. "It is done," he said. Amara looked between them. Then she looked at the sky. Then she said, "Can we eat now? I am absolutely starving." And Kwame laughed. And Nadia laughed. And even Damien laughed. And the sound of it on the courthouse steps was one of the best sounds any of them had heard in a long time. Now, if this story is already speaking to something in you, I want you to pause right here and drop a comment below. Tell me, have you ever been in a situation where you needed help and did not know how to ask for it? Or have you ever been the person who showed up when someone needed it most? Your story matters. Drop it in the comments. I read every single one. And now, let us keep going, because this story is just finding its feet. The weeks that followed were the weeks of the rebuild. That is the only word for it, rebuild, not recover. Recovery implies returning to a previous state, and Nadia had no interest in returning to any previous state. She was interested in something entirely new. She started with the practical things, because the practical things gave the impossible things a structure to sit inside. She made lists. She opened a separate bank account. She enrolled Amara back in school full-time, because during the worst months of the situation with Raymond, there had been days she kept Amara home, telling herself it was for her daughter's benefit, when the truth was that having Amara near was the thing that kept Nadia tethered to functioning. She started seeing a therapist. Her name was Dr. Adaize Mensah, and she had a quiet office with plants on the windowsill and the particular skill of asking questions that sounded simple until you tried to answer them. "Tell me about the moment you decided to stay," Dr. Mensah said in the second session. Nadia looked at the plants. "I did not decide to stay," she said. "I kept not deciding to leave. There is a difference." Dr. Mensah wrote something down. "Tell me about that difference." That was the beginning of a conversation that would take months. Damien called every few days. Not every day, not in a way that required anything. Every few days, in the way of someone who was maintaining a connection without applying pressure to it. He asked how Amara was doing at school. He asked how the legal follow-up was progressing. He asked once about the freelance work, and when Nadia said it was still inconsistent and she was thinking about looking for something more stable, he said, quietly, that he might know of something worth considering. He had, it turned out, a relationship with a design firm, Meridian Creative, the in-house firm that handled visual work for all of his company's development projects. They were looking for a mid-level designer with urban aesthetics experience. "I can send your name," he said. "One line, a recommendation. The rest is yours to do." Nadia was quiet for a moment. "I do not want to be anyone's charity case," she said. He said, "I know. That is why I said I would send one line and the rest is yours to do." She thought about it for 3 days. She thought about what Drive Mensa had said about the difference between pride that protects you and pride that prevents you. She thought about Amara drawing their cat from memory because she did not want him to feel forgotten. She thought about all the things she had been holding alone for so long. On the 3rd day, she sent Damien her portfolio. He sent one line to the director of Meridian Creative. "This designer is exceptional. She is worth your time." She got the call the following Tuesday. She went to the interview on Thursday in a black blazer she had bought for $7 at the market down the street from Kwame's building, and which she had ironed that morning with the kind of attention you give to something that represents something larger than itself. She sat across from the creative director, a brisk and perceptive woman named Sola, and she answered every question with complete directness. She showed her portfolio without over-explaining it. She talked about her approach to design with the confidence of someone who knows what they know. She did not mention Damien Cole. She did not need to. Sola called her back the next morning. The job was hers. That evening, Nadia texted Damien, "I start Monday. Thank you for the door. I opened it myself." His response came quickly. "The door was always yours. I just pointed at it." She read that 3 times before she put her phone down. The job was good, more than good. It was the kind of work that reminded her who she had been before the hard years, before Raymond, before all the accumulated weight of making do. She was designing real things, development projects with civic purpose, signage for a new community library. Environmental graphics for the mixed-income housing complex Ashford Development was completing on the east side. Work that existed in the world, in real space with real people moving through it. Her supervisor gave her a 3-month review that used the word exceptional twice. Amara started standing differently. It was the most accurate way Nadia could think to describe what she observed in her daughter over those weeks. Amara had always been upright, but there had been a quality of bracing in it, a readiness for impact held in her small shoulders. It began to leave. Not overnight. Gradually, the way tension leaves a body when it finally believes that the danger has passed. She made friends at her new school. She joined the art club. She brought home a project about ocean ecosystems that took up an entire weekend, in which she explained to Nadia in more detail than Nadia thought possible about a subject she had previously had no opinion on whatsoever. She also regularly and without embarrassment asked about Damien. "Is Mr. Cole coming to the school thing on Thursday? Did you talk to Damien today? Can we invite him to the art show?" Nadia had a conversation with Dr. Mensa about this, about the shape of Amara's attachment and what it meant and whether it was healthy. "What do you think it means?" Dr. Mensa said. "I think she trusts him," Nadia said, "and I think she has not trusted many men, and I think that matters. What does it mean for you?" Nadia looked at the plants on the windowsill. "It means I am watching myself very carefully," she said. "That is honest," Dr. Mensa said. "Keep watching." "But also," she added, "do not confuse watching carefully with not feeling anything. Both things can be true at the same time." Damien came to the art show. He stood in front of Amara's piece, a large acrylic painting of 2 figures in a garden, one tall and one small, both looking at the sky, and he looked at it for a long time. "She painted that last week," Nadia said, standing beside him. "I can tell," he said. "Can you?" "The taller figure has kind eyes." He smiled slightly without looking at her. "She told me once that kind eyes were the first thing she noticed about me." Nadia looked at the painting. She had not noticed until now that the taller figure did indeed have something in the face that Amara had managed to render as kindness. It was impressive for a 9-year-old. "You have made an impression on her," Nadia said. "She has made one on me," he said simply. They stood looking at the painting. and the quiet between them was the kind of quiet that is full rather than empty. Then Amara appeared from nowhere, as she always did, at exactly the moment she was most required. "You are looking at my painting," she said. "We are," Damien said. "It is remarkable." Amara assessed it herself for a moment. "I think I made the sky too blue, but I could not find the right color for what I was imagining." "What color were you imagining?" She thought about it. The color the sky turns right after something difficult. When it starts to get better, it is not really blue. It is something between blue and gold. They both looked at her. She looked back at them with complete equanimity. "Anyway," she said, "are we getting food after this?" I voted yes, but nobody asked me. They got food after. It was in the car on the way home, Amara asleep in the back seat with her head against the window, that Nadia said the thing she had been arranging words around for several weeks. "Damien!" He glanced at her. "What are we doing?" she said. He was quiet for a moment. "Then, what do you want us to be doing?" "I want to know what you think this is. What you think it is becoming." She looked at the city moving past the window. "I am asking because Amara is attached to you, and I am not going to allow something to develop that is ambiguous. She deserves better than ambiguous. We both do." Damien slowed for a light. He looked forward at the wet road. "I care about you," he said. "Both of you. I have been clear with myself about that for a while." He paused. "I have not said it because I did not want you to feel that accepting my help came with conditions. I wanted you to be able to make choices for your own life without wondering whether refusing me would cost you something." Nadia turned to look at him. "I have been waiting," he said. "Not strategically, just waiting because it was the right thing to do." She studied his profile, the set of his jaw, the hands on the wheel, the man who had come running in the rain for a wrong number text and had stayed, quietly and consistently, without requiring anything for the staying. "I am not ready," she said. "I want to be honest with you about that. I am still in the middle of work I need to do on myself. Dr. Mensah has a list, and it is not short." He almost smiled. "But," she said, "I do not want you to disappear while I am doing it. I want you to still be here when I come out the other side." He looked at her then. "Nadia," he said, "I drove across this city in the rain because your daughter sent me 4 lines of text from under her bed." He said it plainly, like a fact. "Disappearing is not something I know how to do." The light changed. He looked back at the road. She looked at the city, and she breathed, slow and full, the breathing of someone who is beginning to believe that safety is not always temporary. In the back seat, Amara made a small sound in her sleep and did not wake up. The months moved forward the way good months do, with a sense of accumulation. Small things becoming large things without announcement. Progress that does not look like progress while it is happening, and then one morning you look back and you cannot quite see where you started because the distance is too great. Nadia moved into her own apartment in November. A 2-bedroom on the 3rd floor of a building with good locks and a community garden in the back, and a landlord who answered his phone. She used the housing assistance loan from Ashford Development Group, a program she had learned about through HR, a program available to all employees that provided low-interest loans for deposits and first months, rent, repaid through small payroll deductions over time. She painted Amara's room yellow, the same yellow as the rug on Caldwell Street that had been trying so hard. When Amara walked in and saw it, she turned to her mother with an expression that contained too many things for a single word. "You remembered," she said. Nadia touched her daughter's face. "I remember everything," she said. Amara looked at the yellow walls. Then she said, "We need better furniture," and Nadia laughed for a full minute. Winter came. Nadia's work continued to grow. She was given a lead role on the signage project for a new development near the waterfront, and she stayed late twice a week for 6 weeks because she wanted it to be right, not adequate, right? And when it was installed, and she stood in the space and looked at the work on the walls, she felt something she had not felt in a very long time. Pride, clean, uncomplicated pride, the kind that does not need to look around to make sure it is permitted. She texted Damien a photograph of the installed work. He called her back immediately. "This is extraordinary," he said. "It is good," she said. "It is extraordinary." He sounded genuinely moved. "I walk past that space every day. I am going to look at it completely differently now." She did not say anything for a moment. "I am proud of you," he said. "Not for me, just in general. I am proud of what you have built." She stood in that corridor with her phone pressed to her ear and her work on the walls around her, and she did not cry, exactly, but it was close. "Thank you," she said. Spring was when the threat returned. She had known in some still and careful part of her mind that it might. Patricia had told her it was not uncommon. Raymond had been released on a procedural error, a warrant irregularity that his lawyer had located and exploited. He had been out for 3 weeks before Nadia was notified. The notification had been sent to Caldwell Street. She did not know he was free until the text arrived. She was in her kitchen. It was a Thursday evening. Amara was at the kitchen table, doing homework, one foot tucked under her on the chair, in the way she always sat when she was thinking hard about something. Nadia's phone buzzed. Unknown number. She looked at it. "Did you think it was over? I know where you work now. I know where the girl goes to school. I know about your rich friend. You cannot hide from me. I am coming for what is mine." The phone dropped out of her hand. She caught it before it hit the floor. Her hands were already shaking. Amara looked up from her homework. "Mama?" Nadia turned away from her daughter so that her face was not visible. She picked up the phone. She called Patricia first, because Patricia was the first line, and Patricia would know what to do. Patricia answered and listened and said, "Do not touch anything. I am calling the detective right now. Do you have somewhere you can go tonight?" Then she called Damien. He answered before the second ring had finished. "He's out," she said. "Raymond is out. He just texted me. He knows where I work. He knows Amara's school." A silence, not a long one, the length of a man absorbing information and immediately beginning to move. "Where are you right now?" "Home, in the kitchen." "Lock every window and door right now, every single one. I am leaving now. I will be there in 12 minutes. He was there in 11. He came with 2 people she had not met, a man and a woman who moved through her apartment quickly and without drama, checking windows, speaking quietly into their phones, positioning themselves in ways that made the apartment feel smaller and safer at the same time. Nadia stood in the kitchen with Amara pressed against her side and watched it all. Amara was very still. "Is it him?" she said. "Yes," Nadia said. Amara nodded once, with a gravity that should not belong to a 9-year-old. Then she reached up and took her mother's hand and held it, and did not say anything else. Damien came to where they were standing. He crouched in front of Amara. "Do you remember the night you texted me?" he said. "Yes," she said. "You were scared then, too. You were more scared than you have ever been. And you acted anyway." He held her gaze. "Tonight is not that night. Tonight you are not alone, and you are not under a bed, and help is already here. Do you understand?" Amara looked at him. She searched his face with those instruments of hers. "Yes," she said. "Good. I am going to need you to be as brave tonight as you were that night. Just for a little while longer." Amara straightened. She stood up a little taller. "Okay," she said. Nadia looked at Damien over her daughter's head. He looked back. He made a decision in that look. She could see him make it, his jaw set. His eyes settled into something that was not anger exactly, but was adjacent to it. The look of a man who has assessed the situation and determined that it will not be permitted to continue. "I am not leaving you here tonight," he said to Nadia. She did not argue. They went to his family home, a property outside the city with gates and cameras and security that never slept. His mother lived there, a woman named Josephine who had been expecting them, who had rooms prepared and the heating on and a kitchen that smelled of something warm, and who came to the door with an umbrella and met them in the driveway without requiring an explanation. "You must be Amara," Josephine said. "Yes," Amara said. "I have been wanting to meet you for some time," Josephine said. "Come inside. Are you hungry?" "A little," Amara said. "Good. Come." She took Amara's hand and walked her inside, and that was that. Nadia stood in the driveway, in the rain, and felt the surreal quality of the evening pressing against her from all sides. Josephine's warmth, the gates, the security, the distance between this place and the apartment on Caldwell Street, measured not just in miles, but in the entire length and width of her life. Damien stood beside her. "She is going to be okay," he said. "I know," Nadia said. "You are going to be okay." She looked at him. The rain was light now, barely there, the kind that is more mist than water. "Are you?" she said. He looked at her. "Am I what?" "Okay." He considered this. "I am angry," he said honestly. "I am very controlled about it, but I am angry that this man is free, and that you are standing in the rain outside my mother's house because of him, and that your daughter is inside not for the reason I wanted her to be here for the first time." "What reason did you want her to be here for?" Nadia said. He looked at her for a long moment, a real look, an undisguised one. "A better one," he said. "A normal one. Sunday lunch. A film night. Something that did not require any of this." Nadia was quiet. "Someday," she said. "Someday," he agreed. They went inside. Raymond was arrested the following morning. He had gone to her apartment building at 2 a.m. He had attempted to enter through a side door using tools that indicated he had planned this with more preparation than was comfortable to know about. The cameras caught everything. The security team had been watching. The police arrived within 4 minutes. In his possession when they arrested him, tools, a knife, and a folder of photographs. Photographs of Nadia at work. Photographs of Amara walking to school. Photographs taken over weeks, through windows, across streets, with the patience and purpose of someone who had been planning something that the photographs did not name but implied entirely. He was held without bail. This time, there were no procedural errors. Patricia called Nadia at 8 in the morning. "He is not getting out," Patricia said. "Not for a very long time." Nadia sat at the kitchen table in Josephine's house and held the phone and looked at the garden through the window and breathed. She breathed, and she breathed, and she breathed. Amara came downstairs in her pajamas with her hair unbrushed and saw her mother sitting at the table and stopped. "Is it over?" Amara said. "It is over." Amara came to the table and sat down next to her mother. She leaned her head on her mother's shoulder. "Good," Amara said. They sat like that for a while. Through the kitchen window, the garden was beginning to catch the morning light. A late flowering rose against the far wall was doing something extraordinary with it. Nadia looked at the rose and thought about yellow walls and grocery store carnations and a drawing of a cat that was no longer alive but that a little girl drew anyway because she did not want him to feel forgotten. She thought about the woman she had been 11 months ago, standing at the counter in apartment 2C, adjusting her voice, managing the atmosphere, making herself small. She did not recognize that woman from this table. That was not loss, that was the correct direction. That spring, Nadia and Damien had their first real conversation about what they were. Not the conversation in the car, which had been about permission and pace. A different one. A harder one. They were in the community garden attached to the housing development on the east side, the one where her work was on the walls. The raised beds had come in, and the space was alive with the early green of things that had been planted in belief, and were now making good on it. They had walked Amara and Josephine through the whole project, and Josephine had asked 12 intelligent questions about the design decisions, and Amara had named all the plants incorrectly and with complete confidence, and it had been, in all the ordinary ways, a perfect afternoon. Josephine had taken Amara to look at the koi pond at the far end of the garden. Nadia and Damien sat on a bench in the sun. "I want to tell you something," he said. She turned to face him. "When I was building this company," he said, "I told myself that closeness was a liability. That people who needed people were people who could be leveraged." He looked at the garden. "I spent a long time being very good at being alone. Very functional, very controlled. And now," she said, "and now I have a 9-year-old who calls me by a nickname that no one in 15 years of business meetings has ever called me, and a woman sitting next to me who I think about in the middle of very important meetings, and I am not in any way as good at being alone as I used to be." Nadia was quiet for a moment. "What do you think about?" she said, in the middle of the meetings. He looked at her directly. "Whether you are okay, whether Amara is okay, whether I am doing enough, or too much, or the wrong kind of thing, whether you are making progress with Dr. Mensah, whether your ribs have finished healing," he paused, "whether there is a version of this, of us, that you could want." She looked at the garden, at the plants coming in, at Josephine and Amara in the distance, Amara pointing at something in the pond with the specificity of a naturalist. "I spent a long time not knowing the difference between needing someone and wanting someone," Nadia said. "Between choosing a person because they made me feel safe from something and choosing them because they made me feel like myself." He was listening. "I know the difference now," she said. "Dr. Mensah and I have had a very thorough conversation about it." He said nothing. He was giving the words room. "When I think about you," she said, "it is not about what you did for us. It is not about the night or the attorney or the job or any of that." She looked at him. "It is about who you are when there is nothing at stake, when you are just a person sitting on a bench." She paused. "I want that person. For myself, and for Amara, and just for me." He reached over and took her hand. Not a dramatic gesture, not a performance, just his hand over hers, warm and certain, in the sun. From across the garden, Amara turned and saw them. She did not say anything. She just turned back to the pond with a small and satisfied expression that Josephine noticed and did not comment on, but which made the corners of her eyes do something. That was the beginning. Now I want to pause here and ask you something important. Have you ever closed yourself off from love because the last time you opened up, something hurt you? Have you ever stood at the edge of something good and talked yourself out of it? Drop your answer in the comments. I am not asking to be polite. I am asking because someone reading this right now needs to know they are not the only one. Share this video if it is speaking to you. And let us keep going, because where this story ends will stay with you. The relationship grew the way things grow when they have been given the right conditions. Not fast, not with performance, with the quiet consistency of water finding its level. Damien came for dinner on Thursdays, which became Amara's favorite night of the week because he always brought something unexpected. Once a puzzle with 3,000 pieces that they spent 4 Thursdays assembling on the dining room table. Once a book about the history of color that Amara read cover to cover and then explained in full to everyone, including a colleague of Nadia's who had not asked. Once, memorably, ingredients for a Ghanaian dish that Josephine had taught him to make and which he prepared in Nadia's kitchen with an intensity that suggested he had been practicing. "It was not very good," Amara said, with the candor of a child who believes in honesty as a form of respect. He agreed. He agreed completely. They ordered takeaway. Nadia watched him in her kitchen, washing the dishes from the failed attempt without being asked, laughing at himself without needing to be reassured, and she felt it clearly, the things she had been describing to Dr. Mensah in sessions that had shifted from crisis work to something quieter and more constructive. She felt like herself, her full self, not the managed version, not the performing version, not the version that listened at doors and adjusted her voice. Just herself, in her own kitchen on a Thursday. It was not a small thing. In February, Amara turned 10. She had a party in the community room of their building. 12 children from her school, a table of food, a cake that Nadia made herself, 3 hours of noise and running, and the particular joyful chaos of children who have been given permission to be exactly as loud as they want to be. Damien came. He sat in the corner with Kwame, and they watched the proceedings with the contented expressions of people who are exactly where they want to be. When the cake came out and Amara stood in front of the candles, she looked around the room, at her friends, at her uncle, at her mother, at Damien. She took a breath. She blew out every candle in one go. "What did you wish for?" one of her friends asked. Amara looked at the smoke rising from the extinguished wicks. "It already came true," she said. Nadia turned away so that her face was not visible for a moment. In April, Nadia received her formal promotion to senior designer, her own projects, her name on the work, a salary that made her sit in her car in the car park for 5 minutes after receiving the email just to let the reality of it settle. She called Damien. "Senior designer," she said when he picked up. "My name on the building signage. My name." His response came without pause. "I know. Sola called me this morning to tell me before the formal offer went out. She said, and I am quoting directly, that you are the best hire this firm has made in a decade." Nadia pressed her hand against her mouth. "You are allowed to be proud," he said gently. "You built that. Every bit of it." She sat in the car park and cried a little, which she had given herself permission to do when things were good, as well as when they were hard, because Dr. Mensah had pointed out with some firmness that she only allowed herself to cry when something was wrong, and that this was a form of withholding from herself that deserved examination. She cried, and she let herself feel it, all of it, the distance from Caldwell Street, the yellow walls, the work on the walls, the Thursday dinners, the bench in the garden, the hand over hers in the sun. The wrong number, that was exactly right. Damien proposed on a Sunday in September. They were in the garden of the family home, the late roses doing their end-of-season best against the stone wall. Josephine had made the excuse of needing to check something in the house at a moment that fooled no one. Amara had positioned herself behind a rose bush with the transparency of a child who has been briefed. He got down on one knee. He had thought about how to say this, he told her. He had drafted it, which was something that made her smile because of course he had drafted it. He had practiced it, which made her smile wider. But standing here in front of her, he said, all the drafts felt wrong because none of them said the plain thing, which was this. "You have made me better," he said, "not because of what you have been through, because of who you are, because of the way you are building your life, because of the way you love your daughter, because of the person you are on a Thursday evening and on a difficult morning and in the middle of a meeting when I am supposed to be thinking about something else." He opened the box. "I want to be here for all of it, the ordinary and the difficult and then everything in between. I want to be your person, and I want Amara to be my daughter, if she will have me." He looked at her. "Will you let me?" From behind the rose bush, a small voice said, "I already said yes, he asked me first." Nadia laughed. She laughed from somewhere real and deep and unguarded. "Yes," she said, "yes." Amara emerged from behind the rose bush with the dignity of someone who has been waiting patiently and feels the timing was excellent. She looked at the ring. "I helped choose that," she said. "It is beautiful," Nadia said. "I know." She looked at Damien. "You can stand up now." The wedding was in December. They married in the garden of the family home, with fairy lights in every tree, and the cold air, and the particular stillness of a winter ceremony that makes everyone feel as though they are inside something that will matter. Amara walked ahead of her mother, scattering rose petals with absolute commitment, looking straight ahead with the focus of an athlete. Kwame walked Nadia in. Josephine sat in the front row with her hands clasped and her eyes full. When they exchanged vows, they included Amara by name. Damien promised her what he promised her mother. To show up, to stay, to be the kind of man whose actions match his words, on the ordinary days especially, because the ordinary days are where love either proves itself or doesn't. Amara stood beside them and held the rings, and she did not cry, but when Damien knelt to her level after the vows and asked if he could be her dad, she put her arms around his neck and held on, and he held on too, and the garden was very quiet. At the reception, he stood to give a toast. "I want to raise a glass," he said, "to wrong numbers, to the text that was not meant for me but found me anyway. To a 9-year-old girl who was scared and brave at the same time and who reached out into the dark and trusted that something would reach back." He looked at Amara. "You are the reason all of this exists. You are the reason I am standing here. Do not ever let anyone tell you that a small person cannot change everything." He raised his glass. "To Amara." "To Amara," the room said. Amara looked at her plate and her ears went red, and she smiled, the smile of a child who is completely overwhelmed by something good. 5 years after the wedding, Nadia stood at a podium in a conference room with 300 people in it and introduced herself. "My name is Nadia Cole," she said. "I am the founder of Second Chances, a nonprofit providing transitional housing, legal support, and design-led community spaces for survivors of domestic violence. And I want to tell you how this started." The room was quiet. "I was 32 years old," she said. I had a daughter and a cracked tablet, and a situation I had been managing alone for longer than I should have. And one night my daughter did something that changed everything. She reached out for help, she got the wrong person, and the wrong person turned out to be exactly right. She looked out at the room. That is what this organization is built on. Not the belief that everything happens for a reason, but the belief that when help is offered, it multiplies. That one person who shows up creates a chain that does not stop. That the right thing, done once, echoes forward in ways we cannot see from where we are standing. 300 people look back at her. Second Chances had, in 5 years, helped 412 families. Transitional housing in 3 cities. A legal aid network connected to 11 firms. A design program that trains survivors in graphic and spatial design skills, creating pathways to employment in the built environment. Nadia had designed the first space herself. Her name was on the wall. After the conference backstage, Amara found her. Amara was 14 now. She had her mother's cheekbones and her own particular gravity, and she had been volunteering with Second Chances since she was 12, working specifically with the children of families in the program, because she knew, with an authority that no training could replicate, exactly what those children needed to hear. "That was brilliant," Amara said. Nadia looked at her daughter. "You think so? I know so." Amara straightened her mother's collar with the efficiency of someone who has been doing this for years. "You said the thing about the chain, about one person creating a chain. That is the important part." Damien appeared behind them both. He put a hand on each of their shoulders. "Both of you," he said quietly, "you have no idea." They looked at him. He shook his head. Words did not arrive. He looked at his wife and his daughter and the work on the walls behind them, and he was quiet with the fullness of it. "I know," Nadia said. "I know," Amara said. And standing there backstage, in the particular light of a room where something real had just happened, all 3 of them felt the weight and the grace of the chain they were part of. A woman from the church named Celestine who helped a family 20 years ago and never knew the full measure of what she had started. The boy who grew up remembering and waiting for his moment. The child who texted the wrong number at exactly the right time. The chain did not start with the text message. The chain was much older than that. It started with someone choosing to help when helping was not required, and it would continue in ways none of them would live to see. Every time a family walked through the doors of Second Chances and found what they needed, and eventually, in their own time, turned around to offer it to someone else. That is what kindness does. It does not end with the recipient. It never ends at all. Now, before I close this story, I want to speak to you directly, not as a narrator, as a person. If you are in a situation like Nadia was, please hear me. Not the version she told herself, the real one, the one she told Dr. Mensah. If you are managing a volatile person and calling it coping, if you are making yourself smaller to keep the peace, if you are lying awake calculating which version of yourself is safest to present in the morning, please reach out. The National Domestic Violence Hotline is available 24 hours a day at 1-800-7-997-233. There are people on the other end who will answer, people who have been waiting for your call. And if you are not in that situation, I want to ask you something else. Someone in your life right now is holding something alone that they do not have to hold alone. You already know who it is. You have been meaning to reach out. You have been thinking about it and then letting the day close around the thought. Do not let it close. Amara was 9 years old and terrified, and her hands would not stop shaking. But she reached out anyway because she loved her mother enough to try. What might you do if you were that brave? Drop a heart in the comments if this story moved you. Share it with someone who needs to hear that help can come from unexpected places. Subscribe and stay with us. We will be back with another story that reminds you that this world still contains people worth believing in. This has been Untold Desires by Mr. Lewis. And until next time, remember, courage is not feeling ready. Courage is reaching out anyway. God bless you all. See you in the next one.